In his presence there is comfort. In his presence there is peace. When we seek the Father's heart, we will find such blessed assurance in the presence of the Lord.
In his presence there is comfort. In his presence there is peace. When we seek the Father's heart, we will find such blessed assurance in the presence of the
Good morning, and welcome to Unveiled, a presentation of the Church Street Church of Christ in Lewisburg, Tennessee. Unveiled is simply a one-on-one conversation between Christian people designed to help each of us, as followers of Christ, become more aware of and better respond to the presence of God at work in our daily lives. Today, my special guest is LaDelle Smith. And LaDelle, first of all, thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here with me today.
I appreciate being here. Thank you for asking me.
All right, LaDelle, our purpose for this program is to start taking a look at our lives and try to find evidences of the work of God, the presence of God in our lives. And so I just want to ask you a few questions that might help you to discover that, help our listeners to discover that for themselves. So let's begin with just a general introduction. Why don't you tell us about yourself, who you are, in a way that everybody who's listening will get to know you?
Okay. Well, I was born and raised here in Lewisburg, Tennessee in 1956. Born in Gordon's Hospital.
Which no longer exists,
that
right?
Does not no longer exist. I live in the same house that I've always lived in, except for the first 2 years of my life. So I've lived on Church Street for, what would that be, 58 years? No, 63 years. Okay, 63
Whatever it
years.
is, it's a long time.
It's been
right?
a long time. We've added things to it as we've come along and everything. I have a brother, Pat Smith, and who passed away in October of 2019, and I have a sister, Evelyn, and nephew. They live in Columbia now. She's just almost a year older than me, not quite. We're called Irish twins. We were born in the same year. She was born in January, I was born in December. I had my other sister, Helen Smith, and if anybody knows me, they knew Helen. Helen passed away in December of this past year, and I had a sister that passed away. That was baby in 1964. My mother and father were older, so I always felt like I was a little out of a different generation because my mother was over 30 when she got married, and my father was actually on his second marriage. He had been married to somebody for 20 years before he married my mother. His first wife died, didn't have any children, and here we come along. So, let's see, what else? I have worked all my life. I can't imagine not working. I started out working really when I was about 10, 11 years old at a princess dress shop here in town, making bows and wrapping packages. And I worked full-time when I was in high school at a restaurant here in town. I worked at Beach & Sons when I finished that. It used to be a grocery store. Seems like everywhere I work, they go out of business. But Beach & Sons, going to Columbia State Community College, so I got my AS degree in elementary education. Then I worked at Walker Die Casting, third shift, and very hot work. I did that while I was going to MTSU and got my BS degree. Then I started teaching here in Lewisburg, and I went ahead and got my master's degree in special education from MTSU and finished up with my administration and supervision endorsement and started working in Columbia, special ed teacher over there from 86 to 2009 when I retired. And then after I retired, a few years later, Helen and I came up here and worked as custodians up at the church. Just swapped my diploma piece of paper for replacing toilet paper in the bathrooms. So, most important. But that's pretty much my background, I guess.
Okay, so when you look back over your life, I mean, that's a pretty storied past as far as your work experience. Yeah. I had no idea you had that many different jobs. I knew you were a jack of all trades, but you have certainly proved that with that lineup of jobs you've had. Yeah. When you look back over your life, your childhood, everything that you think about as you remember family memories and things like that, tell us a little bit about your spiritual or religious background, and in that discussion, at what point do you feel like you, in a very personal way, discovered that God was real?
Okay. My family did not go to church. Now, my mother was a Baptist. My father leaned toward Presbyterian belief. We actually started going to the Presbyterian church when I was about maybe second, third grade, somewhere along in there. The preacher of the Presbyterian church at that time had a bunch of kids just like, the same age as my sister and brother and I were. And he had a great big old station wagon. And so he would pick us up and then take us to the Presbyterian church. And they had I can remember there was a really bad accident that had happened between the wife and the owner of the grocery store where my mother worked. And she actually passed away on Christmas Day. And I was just third grade, but I've always remembered it. The preacher sued the store owner and Pepsi Bottling Company, or RC, I think it was RC. And all the people involved with that having to go to the trial, my mother having to testify, and everybody, that it was an accident. Nobody was at fault. But I can remember, and my mother never put it in our head to judge anybody, but I always thought that was wrong. And I didn't want to go back. And so I didn't. My brother continued to go there. And then I can honestly say, I think I'm the product of the Church Street Church of Christ bus ministry. The church bus came by our house and picked up a little old lady next door to us. And my neighbor had some grandchildren, and she was going to go to church. And I thought, well, I'll get on the bus with you. And so from about fourth grade on, I took the bus until I got my driver's license and rode that church bus every Sunday and every Wednesday night.
So when you started coming to church at the Church Street congregation, you were coming by yourself? No one else? My
other sister came with me. Okay. She, after about, I guess, 3 or 4 times I came, my older sister, Evelyn, she came with me. And we rode the church bus up here. And so we were truly, I think, that if it had not been for the church bus, I'm not sure we would have ever come this way.
Were you familiar with the Church Street congregation before the bus?
No. After I started coming, I realized I had an aunt that came up here. Oh. So I had 2 aunts that actually came up here. So, and when she saw me up here, she said, "You'll never have to worry about clothes again. I will make sure you have dresses to wear to church." Because we were poor. We were fairly poor coming up, and we didn't know we were poor. I'll tell you this story. When I started school, our house that we lived in had multicolored shingles. Okay, some of them were green, some of them were red, some of them were black. It was just hodgepodge of colors. And I remember a kid at school saying, "You live in a poor house, you live in a poor house." I thought, no, and I came home and I asked my mom, I said, "Mama, are we poor?" And she said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, they talk about our house and the roof being wrong." And she said, "No, hon, you've just got God's rainbow on view all the time." And I thought, okay. And that was before Dolly Parton and Coat of Many Colors. Mm-hmm. Kind of stuck with me.
Yeah.
But
so in the midst of all that, at what point did you, I mean, you knew about God. You were a church goer, so you were learning about God. You were hearing stories about God. But at what point would you say, I, LaDelle Smith, discovered in a personal way that God was real?
Okay, I will answer that two ways. I can honestly say I remember my first sin. I was about 6 years old. Back in the day, Daddy would hang his breeches pants on the bedpost. Okay, when he'd go to bed, he'd take his pants and he'd hang them up on the bedpost. Well, he dropped them and all his change and everything fell out of his pocket. And he'd holler, Dale, come in here and pick up my stuff and put it in my pocket. Well, I crawled under the bed and picked it, and I thought, there's 2 nickels. I'm going to leave these 2 nickels under this bed and find them, a few days later. So, and that's what I did. And I found these 2 nickels, and I said, I found some money. And I knew my mother knew that I had taken those nickels and planted them under there. She had a way of looking at you. I always called it the look. And all she'd said was, God saw it too. Never told me I had to put them back, never told me that I stole them. But I felt so bad because I thought, God saw me under the bed. And I put the 2 nickels back in my daddy's pocket that night. So that I can remember and I remember that was my first sin. That was wrong. I think the first time I ever really came to understand the true presence of God. And I don't know if I had been baptized at that point or not. I got baptized April the 8th, 1970. It was a Wednesday night. And I don't know if this happened before that or after this incident. Somebody gave me a dirty book. It was a joke book. It was a dirty joke book. And I remember that night trying to sleep, and my conscience hurt me so bad. I mean, I felt like I was dreaming, and you talk about a dark, dark, dark dream, okay? And I thought, I can't see anything. But I I hurt. It was my conscience. And I got up and I woke my mama up and I said, Mama, and I said, I've been looking at this dirty book and I want to go to heaven. And all she did, she took the book, gave me this huge hug. I mean, she didn't have to say too much. Huge hug. And she took the book and threw it away. And I remember her look. It was not a look of disappointment. It was a look of love. And everything's going to be okay. And I remember going to sleep, and I've never had that darkness in a dream or sleep again. And if you think about it, if you close your eyes at night, do you not see a little light behind your eyelids? And I feel like I can still see light behind my eyelids now. So, yeah, my mama was a big influence in my life. And I can remember her reading the Bible a few times, but she actually lived the Bible, if that makes any sense. Now, my dad, he was a different character. We didn't get whippings as kids, but he sure did yell at us enough that we wish we had gotten a spanking. Mm-hmm. But we were bad kids. I mean, we ran off 42 babysitters in a 10-year period of time, and literally, and a couple of them were relatives we didn't see until we got grown. So,
I've seen movies about kids like you.
Yeah, we were pretty rambunctious.
So, would you say that your first impressions of God then were fearful ones? I mean, you've described what you considered your first sin and the dirty joke book. Were you afraid of God?
I don't know that I was so much afraid of God as I was afraid of the disappointment.
Okay.
And the loneliness. I think that's what I was more afraid of, because I remember that lonely, dark feeling. That's what I remember. So as a smaller child, yeah, probably was fear. But as I got older, I think it was more that loneliness, that darkness, that I didn't like it. I don't like my conscience to hurt. I want to go to bed at night and feel better.
Okay. So a lot of people at just a little out of high school, maybe past college, decide that they're going to look for that special someone and get married and have a family of their own. And your life kind of took a different course. Tell us about that and why you made some of the decisions you made, and what role do you think God played in those decisions?
Well, I celebrate my anniversary July 4th, Independence Day. I am too independent. I'm very single. So, and here again, I'm going to give you a mama story. My mother always told me when I got older, you pick a person, or you be a type of lady. You be a type of lady that if God was looking for someone to be Jesus' mother today, would he pick you? Okay.
That's interesting.
And I thought, I know he would have probably picked my mama, because she was the type of person that I think he would have picked. Now, I don't know if Jesus would want it to have been my brother, because, like I said, we ran through 42 babysitters, and he probably would have gotten blamed for some of it. So. But I've always chosen to be single. I think I made that decision when I was 8 years old. Helen was Down syndrome, very special, always beside of me. And I can remember telling my mother that, don't ever worry, I'll always take care of her.
How old was she at the time when you were 8 years old?
She was 6 years old. They had just gotten back from Vanderbilt Hospital. Helen had to go to the hospital. She had accidentally taken some medicine she wasn't supposed to have taken. And that's when we officially found out she was Down syndrome, because Mama just raised small town. Doctors didn't tell you anything. Mm-hmm. And we knew Helen was slower than the rest of us. But we were all treated the same, or as individuals. I'll say that. We were treated as individuals. My sister, Evelyn, was extremely smart, so she got away with being able to sit in the corner and read a book. My brother, bless his heart, he hung out with the other older people in the family because he loved the antiques, and everybody loved Pat because he had the pretty curly hair, and he was just the first boy and just not grandson, but the first son of the family. And so Pat was always the pick of all the older people in the family. And I was just kind of like Helen and me just kind of hung out. But I've always known that Helen was going to be mine. And I think one of the things that surprises me at times, people, and I say it shouldn't surprise me, people say, well, you made such a sacrifice of your life to take care of Helen. You've made such a sacrifice and taken on this huge responsibility. I don't think it was ever a sacrifice. I never saw it as a sacrifice. And as far as the responsibility, well, why not? Yeah.
She's your sister.
She's my sister. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to take care of your family. And I probably would have fought anybody over it.
Well, and maybe the reason people say it was a sacrifice is because for many people it would be a sacrifice. You took on for yourself what for many people would be a difficult job. I think it takes a special person to help raise special needs people. And I think God puts special people in those roles, you being one of them. And I think you're in a unique position to think about and ask the question, what God had to do with all of that.
Oh, he was and has been beside me my whole life because of that. And, it's one of those things that somebody wrote a real pretty note when Helen passed away that I was going to miss my shadow. And I thought, no, I was Helen's shadow because she had the light. And I think God put that light there for me.
So you think God used her to make you a better person?
Oh yeah, I would be scared to think what kind of person I would have been had I not had Helen. I'd probably been wild as a buck, meaner than a snake, and no telling what kind of person I would have been. I really believe that. So God knew what He needed to do with me through Helen, and so I've just got to make sure I stay on the right track. So because she's saving a seat for me up there, so I've got to stay on this right track. So yeah, God was very, very instrumental in my life through Helen.
So now that Helen has gone on, LaDelle is left here by herself without her lifelong companion.
Yeah.
How is God working in your life now?
I think God He hasn't changed.
Right.
He's always been around my life to pick me up, me to lean on, to shake me up from time to time. I don't think God has changed in the way He has and is in my life. I really don't. I think I have to be more accepting of the other challenges that's ahead and just follow those leads that He's given me. And so that would be the way I would think I could answer that. I know He's got other things in store for me. And I look at it from the standpoint, I'm closer to the end of my life than I am the beginning. And so, like I said, my philosophy in life has always been just do the right thing. Mm-hmm. Just do the right thing. So I've still got to, instead of doing the right thing for Helen and me, now I've got to do the right thing for me and hopefully lead others to God as well.
Well, there are many people that go through their life that are doing the right things. Mm-hmm. They may be doing kind acts for other people. They may be doing acts of service. They may be attending services of the church. Mm-hmm. Sunday mornings, Sunday nights, even Wednesday nights, but still haven't really discovered how God works in the everyday life. What would you say to those people?
Well, they're not doing the right thing if they don't. How can I answer that question now? They're doing the right things, but they're not doing it the right way. If you don't have the right mindset and the right heart for it, for what you're doing, then you're not doing the right thing. I think you have to, how would I say it? If you don't get rid of the darkness, then you're going to always be walking in the dark. Did that answer the question?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think they're doing the right things, and yeah, they're doing the right things. They're going through the right motions. If you're just taking up a pew, you're taking up a pew and you're not listening. But if you don't open your ears, don't open your eyes, then you're not doing the right thing.
Do you think it's possible that God gives us the knowledge, the ability to discern what's right and what's wrong? It's possible to do the right things, to be in all the right places at all the right times, and ultimately that leads us to discover Him in a personal way?
Yes, I think God puts things in place for us to help make that decision. And if you don't look at it and think, okay, now I have a choice here. I've always had a choice with Helen. Okay, I always had a choice to whether to get on the church bus and come on to Church Street or just stay at home and not do anything. I had a choice to get married or stay single. I had a choice to go to school and become a teacher. I had choices, and I think God put those choices out there for me. And if you look deep in your heart as to what you really think you're supposed to do, then you'll make the right choice. So yeah, God puts these things in your path. You just got to choose which path you want to follow. And he's got these little extra roads on the side in case you venture off.
So I think when you look back over your life, you can say clearly God has been a part of your life for a long, long time, maybe even long before you recognized it. So what do you think God is up to now?
I don't know that. I think he's up to the same he's always been. He hasn't changed. I've just got to stay on the right road. And so I think he's trying to keep me on that right road. He may be making that road a little more narrow for me as I'm going down.
Do you think you recognize his presence more today than you have in the past?
No, I've always talked to God. I mean, people might think I'm crazy, but yeah. And I know as you get older you do, but I think I can honestly say that. I've always talked, never thought anything about walking around the house talking out loud, and talking to God, talking when I mow the yard. It's amazing how much conversation you can have with Jesus when you're mowing the yard. And so, and Helen and I, we would talk in the car, and like Jesus is in the back seat, riding around something or another. So yeah. So I guess God hadn't moved. I've just got to make sure I'm heading toward him.
Well, and that's really the purpose for all of us. I mean, we're going through this journey that we call life together, and our purpose as God's created beings that are created in his image is to open our eyes, not just our physical eyes, but the eyes of our heart, and try to see God's presence, not only in circumstances, but in people, in life itself, whether it be nature or situations that come up in our lives or decisions we have to make. Just seeing his handiwork, because God is very real. He's alive and he's well, and he's dwelling in our hearts, and it's up to us as his people to discover that. And when we do discover it, to tell others about it. And that's really kind of the purpose of what we're doing here today. And so I want to thank you for being with me today. It's been an interesting conversation. Thank you for opening up your life and sharing a piece of that with us.
I didn't think I was going to cry, but thank you.
You did very well. Thank you for being here, and we want to thank all of our listeners for being with us as well. You have been listening to Unveiled, a presentation of the Church Street Church of Christ in Lewisburg, Tennessee. I am Kyle Bolton, the pulpit minister at Church Street, and I would like to personally invite you to come be with us during our times of worship and Bible study together. We meet every Sunday at 9 o'clock a.m. for our morning worship, followed by Bible classes for all ages at 10:15 a.m. We meet again on Sunday evenings at 6 o'clock p.m. We also have a midweek meeting for further Bible study on Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. I would also like to invite you to tune in to this radio station every Monday through Saturday from 6:40 to 6:45 a.m. for our daily devotional program called Upreach. Thank you for listening. Have a blessed day.
In his presence there is comfort. In his presence there is peace. When we seek the Father's heart, we will find such blessed assurance in the presence of the Lord.
In his presence there is comfort. In his presence there is peace. When we seek the Father's heart, we will find such blessed assurance in the presence of the Lord.
Come